Have you ever seen someone standing on a grand stage, thousands of lights shining, millions of names shouting, and wondered, what exactly has she sacrificed to get to that point? Today, we'll talk not about the stage, not about the trophy, not even about fame, but about a brother, about family, and about BTS Jungkook not as a global superstar, but as a younger brother who once felt small, scared, and almost gave up before being saved by the quietest of loves, his own brother's sacrifice. Jungkook. This name sounds familiar, right? One of the youngest members of the biggest K-pop group in the world, BTS. The Golden Magne, the all-round genius. From golden voices to precise dance moves, from flawless visuals to a humble demeanor that makes you fall in love. But behind all the glitter we see, who exactly is Jungkook? For over a decade, the world has known him as a global icon. But it turns out during that time, he kept one secret that he never shared with anyone about his family, about his childhood, and about the person who shaped his soul more than anyone else, his older brother, John Young-hyun. In a private interview before his military service, Jungkook finally opened up. The question was simple. What is something about you that the world doesn't know? And after a long pause, he simply replied, "My family, there's something I've never shared." And from there, a small door in Jungkook's heart began to open. While the world was busy idolizing Jungkook, few knew that there was one person who had been quietly sustaining his life all along. His brother. Different from the dramatic narratives in Korean movies or dramas, the story of Jungkook and his brother is not about big conflicts or big fights. Instead, it's about silence. About silent sacrifices that are never asked for in return. About love that isn't spoken in words, but manifested in small, everyday actions. In the form of hard work, money in envelopes, and sacrifice dreams. Young-hyun is Jungkook's older brother. He's not famous, he doesn't appear in public, and his photos are rarely circulated. But his role is huge. When Jungkook started seriously pursuing singing and wanted to be an idol, Young-hyun knew his family wouldn't be able to afford it all unless someone gave in. And he did. Young-hyun, who had his own dream as an animator, was willing to give up his dream. He worked in warehouses, night shifts, and briefly as a security guard in order to send money to support his sister. He did all this in silence. He never complained, never asked to be remembered. Jungkook once said, "I didn't even know how much he sacrificed until years later." There's one night that still stands out in Jungkook's memory. He came home from training at Big Hit exhausted, demoralized, and feeling hopeless. In his bag, he found a small envelope. What did it contain? 50,000 won, and a piece of paper that read, "Don't forget to eat. I'm proud of you." If you've ever felt really down, and then had one person suddenly remind you that you're loved, you know what that feels like. Jungkook admitted that that night, he cried silently in the bathroom. That was the turning point, the moment he realized he can't give up. Not because of his dreams, but because there were others who had sacrificed their dreams for him. Jungkook's songs are not just melodies. They were letters, messages that he can't deliver directly. The song Still With You, for example, is full of longing and gratitude. Then there's My Time, about loneliness and feeling foreign in the spotlight. Even Euphoria, which is so bright, was born from wounds and unattainable hopes. Behind these lyrics, there is love for his family. Theoretically, Jungkook's confession opens up a discussion about the culture of silence in Korean society. In many families, especially in East Asia, love is often not expressed through words, but through actions. Jungkook's mother rarely said, "I love you," but she would stay up late at night just to sew Jungkook's torn shirt. And that's her way of saying, "I love you." Jungkook's story is not just about one family. It's a picture of thousands of Korean families, and maybe even us in Indonesia, who show love not through hugs, but through silent sacrifice. Today, when you see Jungkook smiling on stage, you know it's not just the result of hard work. It's also the result of hidden tears, of an invisible love, of the big brother who silently stood behind the scenes, supporting everything to keep it going. Today, when you see Jungkook smiling on stage, you know it's not just the result of hard work. It's also the result of hidden tears, of an invisible love, of the big brother who silently stood behind the scenes, supporting everything to keep it going. Jungkook is not just an idol. He is a child, a younger brother, a young man scarred by love and sacrifice, and a dreamer who survived because someone believed in him before the world knew his name. Jungkook doesn't just remember his brother's sacrifice as a part of the past. He made it the foundation of the way he behaves today. Many people think that the more famous a person is, the harder it is for him to remain humble. But Jungkook has turned that theory upside down. He proved that fame doesn't have to take away basic human values: respect, gratitude, and the realization that none of his achievements are his alone. When Jungkook hugs other BTS members, when he cries silently on ARMY's birthday, or when he chooses to perform on live broadcasts despite being tired, it's not just because he's an idol, but because he knows there is a lot of invisible love that has been supporting him from behind. He became who he is today not because he was the strongest, but because he was taken care of by family, by trust, by sacrifices that were never asked for in return. This is also what makes Jungkook so careful in his actions. He knows that whatever he does today will have an impact on the people he loves, even on his brother, who still chooses to live away from the spotlight. So when Jungkook decides to guard his image, guard his words, guard his privacy, it's not because he's afraid of the public, but because he wants to maintain the dignity of the people who once placed their secret hopes in him. He learned from his brother that strength doesn't always lie in the spotlight, but rather in the ability to persevere and give, even when no one is looking. You might ask, why is Jungkook only opening up about this story now? Why not before, when he was starting to get famous, or when BTS was at its peak? The answer may be simple, because he wasn't strong enough to talk about it then. It takes time for one to make peace with the past. It takes maturity to admit that someone once saved your life, especially when you yourself are on top of the world. And more importantly, it takes an honest heart to tell the story that made you vulnerable, just so others know that you too are a human being who was once saved by the love of family. This is where we begin to understand why Jungkook is so close to his fans, why he always says thank you even for the smallest things, why he values his time so much because he knows that everything he is today could have been lost if his older brother had chosen to keep his dreams to himself. She doesn't see her success as the result of one person's hard work, but as the result of an invisible support system. And this is where this story becomes universal, because many of us also grew up in silent love. Love from a father who didn't say much, from a mother who never complained, from a sibling who suddenly appeared only when we were in trouble. And we rarely realize it until a point in life when everything is going too fast and we look back, then we realize there are people who are willing to stand in the shadows just so we can step into the light. Jungkook never asked to be born a star, but he chose to be someone who didn't forget his roots. And this story about his brother is not only a personal confession, but also a collective reminder that whoever we are today, there must be someone who once endured fatigue so that we could keep going. Maybe it's not a brother, maybe it's not a parent, but there is always one figure who secretly loves us from a distance.